Welcome back to session 2 of our Narrative Therapy Tree of Life project, courtesy of the Dulwich Center Foundation, and thank you to you for joining us and continuing this process and journey. The last video I explained about looking at your roots, looking at your history, looking at the richness that you've been gifted in the past, and then we talked about the branches, the hopes, the dreams, the desires, and even like breaking those down into like, is this possible? How is it possible? What's the first step? What's the second step? And then I asked you to tell someone or write it down to kind of solidify some of those thoughts and process. And today we're going to look at the ground around each one of us, and then also the trunk, more of like what's inside. What are the gifts we've been given? What are the talents we have? But before we start, let's begin with a grounding exercise. This one's really simple, but it actually can be really effective when we're feeling overwhelmed by an emotion or just tense or tight. It's really simple. So all you do is you take your left hand and you put it under your armpit here, and you take your right and you put it on your shoulder, and you actually kind of squeeze your arm, and you just take a deep breath in, and you can say something kind to yourself and to your body. So I often just say, thank you for holding everything that's going on right now. Thank you for holding all my emotions, all my sadness, all my dreams. And I just kind of thank my body for being able to hold all the stress and all the good, but just thank my body for being strong for me, for holding me together, even when it feels like I can't do it anymore. Somehow it does. So this is just kind of like, just a reminder that it's the tactile touching your body and just saying something kind, just thanking your body for allowing you to be present in this moment and to do this kind of work. So that's just one tip. Feel free to use it if you like. You may have your own, so feel free to use your own. Something else that I actually found this morning was Lisa Shepherd made this, I want to say 15 years ago, so quite a while ago, but I still have it. And she told us a story about the history of like, particularly in Métis beading, that when an artist was working, they actually are taught to put one misplaced bead in the design, in the picture. And part of it was just to remember that nothing is perfect. And I read somewhere too is about like, it's just to protect against vanity in a way. It's just looking at like, there's just one misplaced bead on purpose. And it's to remember that, nobody's perfect. And I wear this and remember that, like, it's beautiful. And even this misplaced pink bead has beauty, even though it's not perfect. And so I'm wearing this just to remember, even as I do this, even as I think and process about the ground around me and what's inside, that I can still see beauty in the imperfection. So let's begin with some of these questions if you have your hand out. So the ground, now that we have the roots, the ground, drawing about the day to day. So it's basically like, what is the ground like in your life right now? Is it stable or is it frequently changing? And you can even maybe draw this, like if it's stable with maybe just a flat line, if it's like constantly changing with some bumps right now because of COVID, because of sickness and different things that are happening in our family, it's pretty bumpy. Changes with work, all that kind of thing. These are the challenges that are happening right now. You can also draw in some things that you're engaging with to kind of help the day-to-day. Something that I've begun doing is I reach out to one person a day, and I actually like write it down. And that's just something new that I've started to do, where I call someone, I text someone, I connect with someone in my world every day. I reach out. How are you doing? Do you need anything? What's going on? And basically that's a new ground, a new part of my ground, that I'm reaching out to one person a day. And that's not just for them, but it's also for me, to keep me connected, to keep me reaching out. And if I don't do it, again, like that's that bead. It's okay. There's days where I'm not going to be able to engage, and that's okay. But also, like, what influences you on a daily basis? So, you know, like, do you have other people in your home? Do you have work that's like unknown? I know I've been counseling some people where they're still waiting to be laid off or not, and that is a constant stress for them. That's a constant piece of their ground. And why we look at that is just to remember, like, how do we think of ways of managing that? We can't necessarily change that ground, but we can come up with ways of coping with that uncertainty. Also, like, who's actually in your life? So, like, who's in your household? So all that kind of stuff is the ground. What's the constant? Is it a workplace? Like, who's in your workplace? Are they positive? Are they negative? And or like, is there ways to buffer against that negativity? So basically, it's looking at, like, where do you go? Like, what are the constant kind of things that are happening right now? And then also, like, what do you do, like, maybe different now? Like I talked about, reaching out to one person. Is there a place you visit more often? Is there a place you walk to? And that's just something that we've created now that the weather's a little bit nicer. We try to walk every day with our kids, and so that's a new part of our ground. Whereas when it was snowy and cold and all that kind of nice winter, we weren't doing that. And so now, with this new weather change, we are really trying hard every day to get outside and to walk somewhere and to go maybe even wave at some people that live in our neighborhood and say hello. We've got some grandmas on our street who are so lovely that we connect with. So we try to say hi and connect with them. So this is the ground. These are kind of the constants, what's happening. And when you look at some of the challenges, part of it is looking at, like, what are my resources to deal with these challenges? So for example, if there's uncertainty, basically you draw or you write out, like, hey, what do I know for sure right now? I know that I can make it day by day, or let's say minute by minute. And you write some ways of coping with those things. And then, so once you kind of look at the ground, you kind of assess, like, wow, okay, my ground's pretty bumpy. I need some more resources here. Or my ground's pretty good. Maybe I need to add some, like, things that will help me kind of reach out or do something different. And then after you kind of get an idea of the ground, we move up into the trunk. And the trunk is more about, like, who you are, your skills, your abilities, more of the internal pieces. So feel free, if you want to, like, write your name in here. You don't have to, but, like, it's a way of kind of remembering that who we are is a lot more about what's inside than what we do. So it's looking at, like, what are some of the skills I have? And me personally, like, I never grew up with, like, I'm an amazing soccer player, I'm amazing at music. Like, I never actually had any. I always said, like, I've got great people skills. But you know what? That's actually quite a skill. I'm able to, like, really empathize. That's an amazing skill. I used to think that it had to be something tangible or something, like, that others could applaud. But actually, a lot of the gifts that we have more come from the heart of who we are. And so I want you to think about those kinds of things. And the things that you're good at. Like, if you do photography, if you're an amazing cook, if you know, like, love animals and you're just really good caretaker of animals. So those are the things you can write down too. But I also want you to think, like, how are you helpful? How are you kind? You know, what has the Creator gifted you with that maybe is unique? You know, include some of those things and try to see even some of the positives of some of those gifts. Like, even being shy, that can be a gift. It's just part of who you are. And so they're not, just part of it is writing it down. Whatever it is, it's just part of who you are. And then also, like, how important are these talents and gifts to you? Do you value them in other people? Because oftentimes we're able to see the value in others a lot quicker than we see in ourselves. So I want you to try to remember that like if you value it in somebody else, then it's also a valuable gift that you've been given and that you have to offer as well. Are there other skills that people think you may have that you might not be able to see quite yet, but if you've heard it a few times, it's probably true. So even being as bold to write that down. So like even beauty, like, you know, you may not believe that fully, but if you've heard it a few times, write it down. You can even put a question mark there if you're unsure, but just write it down if you've heard it a few times from others. And so this trunk piece, if you're struggling with that, I want you to ask somebody close to you to list 3 attributes that they think of when they think of you, 3 positive attributes. You know, if we're really struggling, just get some help in that way. Just say, hey, you know, Julie, my friend, could you just give me 3 things you think of when, like in a positive way when you think of me? And you can even write like Julie and then write the 3. And if you're still struggling and you can't think of any more yourself, ask another friend or another family member. Can you help me like think of 3 things? Because often we do get a little stuck in this area, so feel free to ask for help with it. So once we kind of like get the ground and then we start to look at the trunk, the inner pieces, I want you to try to connect the 2 by thinking of like, is there anything here inside that could help that I'm maybe not using or is underutilized in dealing with some of the uneven ground or the stress, and try to connect the 2. Even for example, let's say like I saw that, yeah, I'm really good with empathy. I can feel with others. I can see others' pain, feel with them. And then let's say a part of my bump is 2 kids at home and I'm struggling with how to meet their needs. That gift of empathy, how can I give it to myself, especially when I'm struggling with parenting right now? Because I don't know if you know this, but they call it the window of tolerance is quite low, because the higher the stress, the lower our tolerance goes. And so what could it look like if I start to be a little bit more empathetic with myself and with how I'm parenting, and also empathy for my kids, that it's hard. They're not seeing as many friends as they could. They're not able to do some certain things, which is really hard for them. They don't understand. So part of it is having empathy for myself and empathy for them. And how could that give me more strength, more energy? So it's just a way of connecting these 2 together. And I hope that helps. I hope you got some ideas. So feel free to like write, draw, and again, maybe tell someone if you've discovered something new, or write it down. And again, it's all about anchoring that change. It's just bringing it to more of a conscious choice of like, I can do something about this. I'm going to be more empathetic to myself and to others, or at least I'm going to try. And then when I forget or when it doesn't go well, I remember that, okay, it's not about perfection. It's about practice. It's about trying something new. So I hope that helps. So good luck with this section, and take some time to think and process and get it down. And then we'll see you soon for the next section, which will be more of the leaves and gifts that you've been given. Thanks.